Hi, folks. Welcome to A Few Words on Innovation. My name's John Harrell, and I'm with Ministry Incubators. And today, it's my pleasure to talk to Tami and Ryan Canaday in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. And they're going to tell us a little bit about Wagon Coffee and Free Spiritual Community. Ryan, Tami, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Would love to start just to talk a little bit about Free Spiritual Community and where that started and how that vision came to the two of you. Can you speak to that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I can start with that. And first, Free Spiritual Community, we are, we're a newer community, obviously, but we're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And spiritual refugees for us we describe them as those who've been they feel like they've been kicked around by religion. They've been told for whatever reason that they don't belong. And what we've noticed tends to be a lot of addicts and alcoholics, people who struggle with addiction. And we started Free Out. The very short story is I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for 8.5 years. We went through this together. She's the loved one of the addict. I'm the addict. So we fit both those categories. And what we noticed was, especially in our neck of the woods in South Denver, affluent South Denver, Highlands Ranch is a suburb of Denver. And we live in Highlands Ranch. Free is currently located in Greenwood Village, just up the street. But there's the what we call the suburban sickness that we can put a mask on, we can cover it up with money, affluence, whatever it is, and addiction goes underground. But Highlands Ranch, where we live, is now considered the heroin capital of Colorado. That surprises people. So our mission here is to break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. And we want to stay in South Denver for those reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And you all literally started Free Spiritual Community in your backyard some years ago. Is that right?
Yeah.
3 years ago. Yeah.
3 years ago. You want to say a word about it?
Well, we were starting a quote unquote thing, right?
A 4-week thing.
We didn't know exactly what it was going to be, but Ryan called it a thing, and I'm like, I'll do your thing with you. I'll do anything with you. So we did, and it was, I guess we looked at it as a pilot to see how and if it met the needs of our neighborhood, of our community, of people in our area. And the message was loud and clear. It did, and people came. And within the 4 weeks, I guess after the 4 weeks, people said, "What's next, guys? What's your next series?" And Ryan and I both looked at each other and we're like, I guess we need to figure it out. So then we started scrambling and looking for space to start fitting people and the cars, because our street parking was non-existent for people that lived on the street. So we had to make some changes. And we found our current space that we're sitting in here today.
Yeah. And it was just a couple of months after the 4-week session. So we finished that in like August. By October, we had moved into our own space. And what makes that really interesting is I was at the time serving as a lead pastor at the church where we were. And so this kind of grew out of that. I mean, I was there and started this thing while doing that. And we look back and say, man, how do we do that for 1.5 years? I'm now appointed here at Free full time, but we did that for 1.5 years doing both gigs. And it was exhausting, but the beautiful kind of exhausting.
I think the important thing to note too, John, is we are both new at this, especially me, and doing a new thing with a church. So we literally started it with 12 people. Like we planted, if you want to use that language, we started this thing in our backyard and just said, hey, 12 friends, like our 12 disciples, our people, the people that we know have our back. We show up because we don't know if anyone's going to show up. And they showed up, and then others showed up. And so it was never like, let's take some people and say, here's 100 people and start your thing. Like we just did it with some of our closest people that we trusted, that would help us and give us feedback and show up.
And the people, it's worth saying, the people that were showing up and the people that still show up today, these are what many people would put in the category of your unchurched people. These weren't, we didn't have the mother church and then here, take a certain amount from the mother church and plant this church. These were people who did not do the church thing. They didn't do religion, but they would come to this thing. They wanted to talk about God. They have a yearning to be on a spiritual journey together, but they don't want to do the church thing.
Sure. And so there's this sort of almost this like almost an allergy in a way, or not an allergy, a sensitivity to not wanting it to be confused with what people think of when they think of church, because that's been hurtful to them in the past. Is that kind of what you're saying too?
Yeah, and in fact, and we're totally cool with keeping this. We keep it in the category of ambiguous. I tell people all the time, I don't care what you call this thing. I like calling it this thing. God is all over this thing. We have some people in this community that say, man, this is my church. This is my church. And the person sitting next to them will say, what are you talking about? This is not a church. This is a community. This is my tribe. This is my home.
My recovery center.
Recovery center, but it is not a church. And I tell people, I don't know, what is it to you? What is it to you?
That's right. And so fast forward, you said 3 years now, right? What does Free Spiritual Community look like if somebody walks into an event that you're holding at this point? What are they going to notice first?
Community. And I think that, our people have shared that loud and clear, that it feels like home. They say there's a vibe that you get here that it just feels like you're encircled with people and community and its connection. And I do truly, speaking on with coffee and for coffee, you literally trip over our coffee bar coming in, and you can pump it and serve it yourself. So we have people that serve here and make the coffee for the community as a service position. And so they're serving the community, and then the community walks in, pumps their coffee. And we like to say, that it's a feeling of hospitality. And it makes you feel like.
And I would also add, it's our tagline here is, we don't do shame. So it's your story, and people say this here in really profound ways. Your story is welcome here, the whole thing. It's a BS free zone. We don't need the mask. We don't need you to pretty up your story. We have people here that have just gotten out of prison. We have moms here who have gotten DUIs. We have the ugliness here, the messiness here, and it's welcome here. And what you're going to find is people who you're not going to be shamed when you get honest. Your honesty is welcome here, and not just welcome, it's needed here. That's what makes this community unique and full of life. And people walk in and say, this feels like home. And it's more than just like a childhood home. It's like this longing for, I haven't felt like I belonged, and now I belong. And that's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
And you talked about the exhausting work of starting this out in the very beginning. And I think a lot of folks who are watching this, who have done the work of innovation, know that it's exhausting. It can be lonesome. Hours are long. You can often be wondering, what the results are going to be. I know that in moments of exhaustion for me, I've turned a lot to coffee. And so let me use that as a creative segue to talk about Wagon Coffee, which, Tami, you started out of Free in a way, didn't you? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I always have to tell the story of when Ryan went to his first 12-step meeting. He came home, and I was working in the corporate coffee world. So that was my persona, my job. And he came home from his very first 12-step meeting, and he said, man, I showed up. I kind of just wanted to sit in the back and cover my face and not be seen, but they made me serve coffee. So I was like front and center serving the coffee. So I always remembered him telling me that. And we kind of giggled about it because that was my job, and he ended up doing that service position that day. And then when he said, let's start this thing called Free, I thought, well, what's my role and how can I contribute? What's a service work that I can provide? And I'm like, coffee, of course. So, and doing the research, the data says 90% of recovering alcoholics and addicts drink coffee. So that was a no-brainer. That was the story that he told. And then it was my story of almost 20 years of experience now with coffee. So it was just like, like an aha moment to bring it in and start it. And we started slow. We started under the Colorado Food Cottage Act and continued to grow it. And as of October last year, it is in the back rooms of Free, operationally supporting women in recovery from addiction. And it's commercialized. And, as people learn about it and know what it's supporting, how it's supporting, and the good that it does in the world, it's all interconnected, and we're all in it for recovery and for spreading hope.
So I'll brag on it a little bit. We started with a coffee roaster this big in our backyard just to serve to our community. Then we'd start putting it in these brown bags and sell it. And it became part of revenue for Free, it was helping the ministry. But now Wagon Coffee, fast forward a couple of years, is in how many sober living houses?
Over 60 now.
60 sober living houses,
60.
many churches. So it's word's getting out there, and it is truly great coffee.
And I gotta say, I really like just the kind of historical irony of how, it's you all were serving coffee almost for each other, right? And Tami, you came back and said, I know what you could do, or maybe I have it backwards. No, Ryan, you were like, I know what you can do. We can launch a coffee ministry, That's really cool.
Yeah, it's also intersected and interconnected. That it's a beautiful thing, and we're grateful to be able to do it together.
You can kind of see almost a feedback loop of how those things would bounce off each other, and that's really inspiring to see. It's really inspiring to see. All right, if somebody, let me ask one last question before I ask for your websites and socials. If somebody were just starting out in ministry, either coming right out of seminary or maybe never been to seminary before, but they've got the call of God on their life to do something for God's reign in the world, or second career, and whoever that is, they've got this sense, this calling that God is urging them to start something new in response to a need in the community, and they have no idea where to start, and they are scared out of their minds. What do you say to a person who's in that boat about first steps?
Do it scared. You are going to be scared. That is normal, natural, good. You're going to question yourself the entire journey. You're going to say, what the heck am I doing? This is uncomfortable. Yeah, get ready to get uncomfortable. It's going to be some of the most uncomfortable steps you take in your life. And you're going to have haters. You're going to have people in your ear saying, what are you doing? You're not qualified for this. You should just do this. It's comfortable over here. And then you're going to have people say, no, keep going. Step into that. The world needs this. The community needs this. And the only thing worse than doing it is not doing it. You'll be miserable if you don't do it. If that drum is beating, if spirit is calling in here, and y'all know if that's happening. I mean, you know it. You don't get that confused. If you don't listen to that drum, if you don't follow it, you're going to be miserable. It's going to be hard when you step into that fear. There's a hard journey ahead, but you're going to experience an incredible amount of joy, and you are going to experience God in ways you never encountered God before.
You're such a pastor. Yes, I love it. And I think it's so true, and it's so good, and you have to just start. And Ryan often tells people that, and he gives that advice. My angle would be find a big mission, find a big why, and live into it. So what is your mission? What is your vision? And have that fully aligned so that you know where you're heading and where you're going, where the bus is wanting to end up. And I think that gives so much clarity for you. It gives clarity to your board. It gives clarity to your community. And it's easy for them to get on and join you and support you and want to be part of it.
Can I piggyback on that for just 10 seconds?
Of course.
If you're starting something new, we found in our experience, be crystal clear about your vision.
Yes.
So if you're starting a new movement, you're like, I just want to create disciples for Jesus Christ. Yeah, tell me a church that doesn't want to do that. Like, come on, get crystal clear about your mission, and then don't waver from it. Go all in on it. Beautiful words.
I like it.
Well, Ryan and Tami, I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. What an inspiring conversation, and I just know folks are gonna feel some adrenaline listening to the two of you talk. Let's talk web and socials. If somebody wanted to find Wagon Coffee, where would they go?
So social, it's Wagon Coffee Roasters. We do have a website, so people can go in and see what we do, why we do it. It shares our story, so there's a little more background of who we are and why Wagon came out of that. And that's at wagoncoffeeroasters.com.
Okay.
And John, did you know why it's called Wagon Coffee?
I do not recall why it's called Wagon Coffee. Will you tell me?
Well, so the wagon has always been a central image at Free. We are being the wagon in our community. We're offering hope and healing, and we're going to a place of healing and restoration together. And so when we were like, well, should we call it Free Coffee? That didn't go over so well because people thought it was free coffee. So we initially had it that way, and then we renamed it Wagon Coffee from the century-old saying of being on the wagon and falling off the wagon.
Being on the wagon together.
That's
why. Really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I could see how free coffee that might have caused a little bit of confusion. But I like it. I like it. That's really cool. Ryan, where could somebody go to find Free Spiritual Community online?
You can check us out on the website freespiritualcommunity.com, or you can find us on social at Free Spiritual Community.
And you have an app.
Yes, we have an app that is also free to download, Free Spiritual Community, and you can stay in the connection, in the loop on the app.
Wonderful. Well, Pastor Ryan and Tami, what a joy to talk to you today. Thanks so much. And folks, we've been talking to Ryan and Tami Canaday in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. And my name is John Harrell with Ministry Incubators at ministryincubatorscom. And if you want to learn more about the innovation efforts in the Western North Carolina Conference, you can go to wnccumc.org/innovation. And you'll find there inspiring stories about things people are doing out in the community that's big and scary and bold and start something new. Ryan and Tami, thanks so much for spending some time with us today.
Thank you, John.
All right, take care, and we'll see you all next time.